This way of doing is a deep dive into how publishing works in behavior analysis, what's going on in academia, current research innovations, and everything in between. So before we talk about the specific edition, one of the things that we were talking about together before we started rolling the cameras is the idea that I think a lot of people don't understand how behavior analytic journals work, who funds them or controls information, how people get in or don't get in. So if you don't mind painting kind of like a pretty broad strokes on like, what is this process? Because we know that we have 50% of behavior analysts have been certified for less than 5 years. Chances are most of them have not published yet, unless they perhaps had a thesis or dissertation published. And so I think this seems to be this like mysterious process that's only reserved for very special people.
For sort of an elite class or something.
Right, and so I'd like to kind of like be honest about like what it is, and then also frankly get your feedback on where we need to go.
Yeah, sure. So first, let's start with like the general sort of acknowledgement that if you haven't been part of a group or moved within a particular group or culture, you're not very familiar with whatever that group is. So if that group is the sort of publication process, of course, why would you be familiar if you haven't engaged that process? But the same is true of the sort of ivory tower researchers. They're also not so familiar with the practitioner world if they haven't been engaging in that world too, and the social justice world if they haven't been engaging in that world. So it's not really a surprise that the majority of folks aren't super familiar with the publication process, because the majority of folks in behavior analysis haven't engaged that process. And that makes sense, and that's true not just of behavior analysis, but that's true of psychology, social work, most helping professions. Most of the people doing the helping aren't publishing research on doing the helping. And part of that is just a matter of like allocation of time. Like, let's just be honest, when we have a BCBA and we're helping families, kids with autism or whatever our job is, how much of our week do we have set aside for research? If there's a whole wait list of other folks who need our help, are we gonna say, no, sorry, I gotta work on my research paper? Like, I see that you're suffering, but I don't have time, I'm gonna work on my research paper. If you're a full-time practitioner, there just literally isn't the time in the day, right? So it makes sense that there's this sort of divide. So basically, here's how it works. Most people, or at least a lot of people, think that there's a puppet master behind the scenes. They think that there's organization where there isn't. And by the way, that's a very human trait. That's a very human activity, is we look at a random mess of stimuli and we try to detect patterns where there aren't any. That's common, we all do that, right? And so that's sort of how rumor and gossip get generated. We don't really know what's going on, so we create something that must be going on, right? Well, that's really common with the publication process. People have very strong opinions that they share on Facebook especially about the publication process that when they're not informed by familiarity with the process, they come up with all kinds of patterns of who must be in charge and stuff like that. So here's the basic deal. It's way less organized than you think. Like, there isn't anyone like, pulling the strings behind the scenes. And the reason for that is because science is about protecting science from the influence of any one individual person or corporation, so that individual people or interests shouldn't actually have very much influence. So even as an editor of a journal, I actually don't have that much control over what gets published in the journal. Ultimately, it's my editorial responsibility what gets published, but I'm not hand-picking things. I'm not hand-picking people. That's really not part of the process, And so a lot of people think, for example, you need to have a PhD to submit a manuscript to a journal. Totally false. That's never been the case. It's not the case. People think like you have to maybe have published before or been a co-author on a study before you can submit your own study. Totally false. It's not the case. It's never been the case. People think maybe you have to be affiliated with a university in order to submit an article for publication. Not true at all. So basically the way it works is you just have to send it in. There aren't any qualifications, or there's no degree that you need to have, nothing like that. You need to send the manuscript in. You need to submit it.
Ryan and I thought that this was such an important piece to touch on because a lot of people don't understand how research is conducted in our field. They definitely don't understand how they can conduct research in applied settings, since most of you guys are practitioners. And a lot of people think that research and publication is something that can only be done by a PhD. We're here to tell you that ain't the truth. So we went to some of the best sources that we know to get you information to help you have a better understanding of how all of this works in our field, and hopefully to give you tools so you can feel confident as a practitioner to be able to conduct research in your own organization. We sat down with some of our favorite people who were also conveniently available to us by driving during COVID to be able to bring you all of this information. Who are these people? It's Dr. Jonathan Tarbox, Courtney Tarbox, and the special debut of both Cleo and Margo Tarbox, Dr. Fahmie, Dr. Caio Miguel, Dr. Meg Heinicke, and Dr. Amber Valentino. All of these people work in a variety of different types of settings. They have focused on a variety of different types of research, but they are all committed to ensuring that practitioners in behavior analysis are being brought into the research family, that you guys all have information, especially from Jonathan Tarbox as the editor of the Behavior Analyst in Practice. You all have information on how journals actually work, and really we want to make sure that you're motivated to start conducting research, and more importantly, as Jonathan would say, turning in your manuscript. We also made sure to touch upon innovations in behavior analysis. So many people think that our work is only to do with people on the autism spectrum, and we do amazing work in that area. There's actually a lot of other areas of application for behavior analysis, and Dr. Meg Heinicke talks a lot about the work that she's done in the area of brain injury, which is known as a silent epidemic and affects at least 10 million Americans every year. We also got to sit down and get to know some of our favorite behavior analysts as people, and we think that you'll enjoy this part too. You get to see Amber Valentino's beautiful son, Porter. You get to have Courtney Tarbox doing a demonstration exercise with her daughters, Cleo and Margo. We get to talk about Caio Miguel's incredible Boston Terriers and the fact that he gives his own Boston Terrier a pedicure. And that was part of it was so fun for us to be able to provide information to you guys, but also to let you know that we're all just regular people and we're all trying to live our best lives and we're all trying to do good work. So we really hope that you enjoy this, and most importantly, we hope that you come away with really great tools that will galvanize you to really kind of help us all bridge this research and application gap that we have right now, to be able to know how to conduct research in applied settings, and also to really be thinking about ways that we can apply our science in other settings outside of autism services. We hope you enjoy this way of doing, because we certainly enjoyed making it. We out.
We out.
We out.